Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest Scratching the Surface episode where Alan and I sat down and answered your questions, people from the Hyperconscious Nation. Today, we were lucky enough to sit down with Michael Gorman. He is the creator of the Movement Family, so he helps high-risk people give back. So he focuses on teaching homeless people goal setting, and he'll go out and do networking events. He has probably the biggest heart out of anybody I've ever met in my entire life. We sat down with him in studio. Alan and I were blown away.
Do not miss this episode. He's going to inspire you so much to go out and serve others. I think he grew up with a family that was very, very supportive of him, and he kind of wishes that everyone had that. If you can think of a time in your life where you would not be the person you are today, if someone wasn't there for you during your darkest hour, that is who Michael is for so many human beings.
I don't think I can speak highly enough of him because we were so blown away. He is just a genuine, good human being. Like, being able to record with him and just get to share an hour with him was unbelievable. You guys will definitely resonate with him, and we hope you will enjoy.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hyperconscious Podcast is proudly sponsored by our friend and mentor, David Meltzer of the Playbook Podcast. He was kind enough to join us on episode 144 and 135.
Folks, it has become Kevin and I's mission in life to help you realize that the life of your dreams is right on the other side of you becoming the greatest version of yourself. Let us help you do that.
I rarely do these things twice in such a short amount of time, but you guys impress me. I believe in people that provide value and of our service. You two guys are on your way to huge fulfillment, purpose, and profitability, and I look forward to helping you both.
We appreciate that more than you know. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, we have yet another guest in studio. So, I'm sure you heard Alan and I mention that we went to Small City Big Dreams. It was a networking event and a speaking event in Haverhill, Mass. And we saw a couple speakers, but somebody that we are sitting down with today, his name is Michael Gorman. We were blown away by not only your story, not only your purpose, not only your mission, but your heart. I remember tapping Alan on the shoulder and saying, I think he might have a bigger heart than me. And that's something I don't take lightly because I feel like that's one of my strengths. I feel like that's one of the best things about me. And I was blown away by your story, your purpose, and just your mission, man. It really spoke to Alan and I. We knew, like, leaving that event, we were like, yo, we have to have him on. Did you talk to him at the event?
No.
Or was it after? It was after. But so if you can introduce yourself to our listeners and give a little bit of a backstory, you can go as deep as you want. We'll ask about the Movement Family and all about it. So who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it?
Perfect. So for everyone out there, name is Michael Gorman. Right now, people mostly know me as, the founder of the Movement Family. So it's a program I started back in 2011. It'll be good when you guys ask some questions about the program. Just a little background about it. I was 18 years old when I started the program. I had that support network growing up with a mother and a father, always, being there for me. But losing friends at a young age, not having that support system, not having that guidance, not having that love, kind of motivated me to start this program. So like I usually tell people, it only started with about 8 people in the program. And then after that first year, it grew to 100. And now 8 years later, we're over 350 individuals in the program. So people like, what is TMF? It's anyone looking for a second family in life. So whether you're on the right track in life already, whether you have nobody, it's anyone looking for a second family.
So what exactly does the Movement Family do? What are you guys all about? What is your mission. Like, you were telling stories at this event about things you were doing around the holidays. So just give us an outline, and the listeners an outline, an overview on what exactly TMF is, and what do you guys like stand for? What do you do to help others?
Okay, so TMF, we actually just changed the program. It's actually 13 and older to be in TMF. Very diverse group. So you have people of different races, different backgrounds, different cultures mixed together. So we have a weekly meeting that's every Monday, 6 to 8. And so we'll meet together in a location and basically have a topic for the night. So last week we had actually a city councilor from Lawrence come kind of teach us how to vote, because I feel like not many people in TMF know how to vote. Learn a little bit about politics, about his story. For example, this upcoming Monday, we have a woman named Denise Murray who lost her son to a drive-by shooting on Lowell Street in Lawrence a few years back. And this helps us because there's a lot of at-risk TMF members who are on that verge of going down the wrong road. So I think hearing her story, might touch them. And then, the week after that, learning how to quilt, things that they may never have done before. And kind of running away with that piece. And then Wednesday night is kind of, we have like a project we think of yearly, kind of something we want to accomplish. So every Wednesday we do a homeless feeding in Lawrence, and that's 8 to 10 at night. And that's basically helping anyone that might be struggling with homelessness, addiction, or prostitution. So like I tell everybody, I didn't want to just be a soup kitchen there on every Wednesday. I didn't want the homeless just come and, get a meal, and the next Wednesday come, it's a different meal. We have various services for them every Wednesday night. So when they come and eat their meal, it's a big dinner style. So TMF are mixed with the homeless. We eat together. And then after that dinner, we basically have like Tewksbury Detox that comes and has a table, the Methadone Clinic. We have a board games table. They're playing board games. We have a donations table, a hygiene table, a prayer table, veterans outreach. We have Lawrence General Hospital. So the services are there for them. Sometimes it's hard for a person by themselves to say, I want to go to detox, I want to get help. Because they got to kind of go by themselves and find that service. But if it's right there at the dinner, there's a hope, there's a chance, there's a chance to get them off the streets. So that's one of our projects. I can go in detail about, the Christmas on the streets. We have different projects. I just want TMF to see different things in life. Sometimes they're just so used to Lawrence.
Right.
And they're just so used to their environment. Like I remember years ago, we took a trip to Boston to go to an art center, and I had quite a few hands that never went to Boston before, which is amazing. That's in Massachusetts, just
right.
And it's so it's I just want to open their eyes to different things.
It's crazy what can become normal.
Right.
Like the things that we do every day, the things that we think, the things that we see every day can become normal. So what you're doing is allowing people to realize what you're seeing, the experiences, maybe the way you've been treated, that's not normal. Like necessarily, that's not the way it should be just because you're used to it. So, I love it. I absolutely love it.
It's just a learning experience.
So jazzed up about it.
It's a learning experience, even for myself,
So I prepped some questions for you, just for the listeners. Like, I was near tears during your speech, and all you were doing was telling stories of what you guys actually do in the community. And I was talking about leadership in the preamble with you. So I think that leadership is being a dealer of hope. You're trying to give people the opportunity to be better. And I mentioned injecting belief into others. Like, I want people to believe in themselves, and most importantly, their own brighter future for themselves and others. Because if you believe in a brighter future, you will have hope. And I think that that's everything. So I wrote this question, showing people, so this is what you said at your speech. I was looking at my notes earlier from the speech. Showing people that you care can turn it all around. We don't just want to give them something. We want to facilitate experiences where we can find a way into their hearts. Can you explain why it's so important to connect with someone's heart before you can actually influence them for positive change, and how our listeners can really use that to help other people in their lives?
I always say that with whether it's a TMF member, a homeless, an addict, a girl that's struggling with prostitution, I always say I want to slowly work my way into their heart. There's this, I did an internship when I was 20 years old, and they believed in motivational interviewing. It's basically meeting someone where they're at. So if I look at a homeless person or a TMF member and I looking down on them, like, you need to do this, you need to accomplish this,
Right.
You should do this. they've already been told all those things. They don't want to look at me as like, oh, I'm not going to listen to this guy, So I meet them where I think, it's huge to meet an individual where they're at. Let them set their goals and just believe in them, give them the hope. Because there's nothing better than just us. Sometimes, you've heard it from the family member all the time where it's repetition.
Right.
Then you hear from a stranger who you don't know who's, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to accomplish in life? And you basically, just believe in them and you just give them that support system. You kind of see like a different type of vision in their eyes. They go, oh, okay, like, yeah, like, I'll try it. And just having somebody try something is huge. And I think, like being a leader just for myself, I've been running the program for 8 years and I just think like I'm no better. I'm just a TMF member myself. Like I'm no better than anybody in this room. I might run the program, but I'm no better.
I live by a quote. You cannot positively influence someone while simultaneously judging them. How have you eliminated judgment from your life so that you can help others? And how can other people... That's one of my main goals, to eliminate all judgment. Now, I think you need to be discerning with your decisions and with things in life, of course, but judging others, I think, will hold everyone back from making that connection that can make a real change. So how have you overcome that in your life?
Man, even growing up, you hear, like, whether it's school or whatever, like, people judge. So many people judge people, whether it's the person sitting across the lunch table and it's just like, oh, my God, look at that person over there.
Right.
But we don't even know the person. Like, you don't know one thing about that individual.
I know.
Right.
And it's crazy to think that's sometimes how society works. It's unfortunate. I just think, we don't know anyone's story. So we got to kind of, like, just think outside the box. Like, how can we look at that person any different than ourselves when we don't really know what that person's going through? Everyone's going through something.
I was lucky enough to interview. The interview didn't see the light of day because the audio was so bad. The listeners know this. Justin Wren is a professional mixed martial artist, and he is a philanthropist. So he'll go to the Congo and he builds water wells for the pygmies. And one of the things he said was, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's not about giving them charity. It's about giving them the ability to build and grow and learn and really fend for themselves. So for you, what's the difference between giving somebody like charity, like a $5 bill on the side of the road, versus spending time with them, learning their story? Like, how does that actually impact them versus just giving them, the financial ability to get themselves a meal? Like, what is the difference there?
Yeah, so I think time is huge. I think time is probably one of the most important things in this world. You can't get it back, and when you give it, it's meaningful. Like, for example, I'm going to kind of go into detail. When I was 18 years old, I studied the streets of Lawrence inside and out, like every alleyway, every bridge you could think of, for a year with one notebook, and I didn't interact at all. I was with 4 other TMF members that were my age, and we thought it was interesting. We were curious. We didn't really know why someone was out there. So we took a notebook and we jotted down notes, the times of days they were out there, the type of age group, the race, was their drug use there and everything. And when I was 18, in Lawrence, I always say there's 4 corners for like prostitution. It's Haverhill Street, Tremont Street, Cedar Street, and Green Street. And what I decided to do is I wanted to spend the time with those individuals after that year. So I didn't know anything, and I was going to school for human services and social work, but I didn't want to just go for the books. So I purposely asked, individuals to, like, I want to see, like, someone struggling with addiction, like, can you smoke, like, crack? And, like, I want to see it. Like, I want to see, like, the smoke and the crack, or, like, the shooting the drugs, spend time with them. Like, I'll never forget the first woman I ever met. Her name was Kuba. She's no longer with us. She was struggling to find a vein and crying and just saying, I used to be so beautiful. This wasn't my life at one point. And I was just spacing it off, like, oh my God, like, how did you get into this? How did you start? And such a pretty woman, like, no one just wants to be a heroin addict. That's why it's like somebody going down the street could easily give a $5 bill and be, like, take care, have a great day. But I think just spending time with someone, showing you care, will mean the world,
That's huge, man. I'm setting the intention now. I would love to partner up for something, because I'll be honest, it's not judgment for me. It's just like there's so much contrast that I don't know how to not interact. I don't want to sound like, you know what I mean? I don't know how to understand you. If you are a homeless person, I don't know. I don't know what you've been through. And I think maybe me giving the time to somebody and learning about their story, I think it's being vulnerable too. Like sitting with somebody and really hearing their pain And all that would be vulnerability chasing. So I would love to, if Alan's in, I mean, if not, I'll do it without you.
Oh, of course.
But
Let's do it.
I knew you would be. But I would love to do something along those lines to help others, and I think that would help me grow as well.
So one of the things I noticed about your speech is that you don't need any of the credit, and you always say we more than you say I. And that's like a huge leadership thing. So what I wrote was this. I basically said, I noticed that you don't need any of the credit, and your main focus is on team and helping the community. Were you always that way? And what's your primary motive for action today, and how has it evolved over the years? Because, like, you said that for a year you studied the streets of Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? And like, what is your motive for action? Like, what's behind all of this in terms of Michael Gorman? Like, what pains in your past have created the empathy that you clearly live by today?
When it comes to never taking credit, sometimes like my name will be like, say, in the newspaper or the magazine, or sometimes like a little article, or like founder of TMF starts this wonderful thing or does this amazing project. But I don't want that to take away from what the members are doing. They're putting in the same work that I am, and it's just a family aspect, and it's a we, it's never just a me thing. And I always express that in the meetings, because sometimes people do see that. I just feel like a together, it can make special things in life. If you work as a team, anything's possible. And when it comes to like, why I started this stuff, it was truthfully the curiosity. When I was turning 18, the thing that honestly started it, there was a woman who's no longer here, and she was crying on the side of the street. And I was just walking by that day, and I said, "Are you okay?" And she says, "No, I'm dope sick, and I want to end my life." And honestly, the guy that I was, having a date with, selling her body to support her habit, ripped her off. And I didn't know what any of that stuff meant, And from there, I just kind of wanted to learn. And I was on those streets of Lawrence. I played college basketball. So from 18 to 22, 4 years, I didn't really work. Basketball was a full-time job for me. So when I came home in the summers, I was spending a lot of my time on those streets.
Right.
And that original crew, like, it's a vicious cycle when it comes to addiction. Like, those same faces aren't out there anymore.
Right.
When I was 18 and it was that whole crowd that I built a relationship, to be honest with you, those individuals either passed away, currently incarcerated, or are sober somewhere in the United States now, living reunited with their families. Like, I look at it now, there's not one person that's still out there that I knew, and it breaks my heart.
What makes the difference from your perspective? Obviously, it's individualized. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to personal development, but you mentioned 3 circumstances of people that were out there that are no longer out there. One of them is they're either passed away, what was the second one? Incarcerated, or they're out sober somewhere with families, being productive members of the community. What makes the difference from your perspective?
So I've seen the painful stories, and I've seen the successful stories. One of the most successful stories to me is I was 19 years old, and there was a woman that I found on the corner of Tremont and Broadway Streets. And it was wrong place, wrong time. She was using a syringe, but I gave her an index card, and it just said, don't ever give up. And instantly her eyes began to water. And we went back that next following night with a McDonald's gift card. And we walked down Broadway, went to McDonald's, we sat down and we talked about life. And I put out a sheet of paper, and I'm like, write 3 things that you haven't done in years. And she wrote, go out to dinner, go see a movie. And the third one she couldn't even think of because she was kind of on the spot. So we decided is that Sunday we were going to go pick her up to go see a movie and go out to dinner, 3 of us. People might think it's crazy hearing this, but, we were naive. We're young. We're just trying to, like, do something and try to work our way into her heart. So we came up with this plan. Sunday came around, and she wasn't there where we were going to pick her up. So we're like, oh, man, did she just say, like, yes because she just wanted something to eat and making us feel good for the moment? Did she forget? Is she out getting high? And, that's more important right now. Well, the smart thing, what we decided to do when you're doing that year of the notebook, is we decided that a lot of these homeless individuals and addicts have a warrant out for their arrest. So whenever we met with someone, we got their first and last name on purpose. So if we didn't see them again, we were going to either find them on Google in the police log, or be able to get in touch with someone who might know this individual's name. Well, 3 weeks in a row, we're looking for that woman, and she wasn't there. We find her in the police log. Possession of a Class A substance. So we're over here thinking as a little group, young 18, 19-year-old kids, what can we do to find her? We call all the prisons and all the jails. We find this woman in Framingham Women's Prison. We're like, well, let's stick with her. Let's not give up on her now. Let's go visit her at her Framingham Women's Prison. So now we're 18, 19, going to our first prison. And, we don't even know what we're doing. We go into the security check, and we sit in the chair. And this Framingham Women's Prison is not through a glass window. It's like sitting in front of the individual. So we sit there first, and we're waiting for her to come out. So we're like, oh, God, is she going to think we're crazy? Is she going to at least be like, oh, my God, like, I appreciate you guys? So she came out, and she was beyond shocked. Like, oh my God, why are you guys here? Like, why are you guys?
Why do you care so much?
Why do you care so much? I remember her asking like it was yesterday, and I'm like, well, we believe in you, and she's like, this is still crazy. Like, why though? And I'm like, well, Chachi, like, her street name was Chachi, and we're like, we really care about you. But what we decided to do is we wanted to go on the journey with that individual, and I'm telling this story because it is one of the most meaningful to me.
Please do.
So basically, what we did, we visited her Monday, Wednesdays, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, because that's how the visits went at Framingham. And we wrote to her during the week too. So we are writing to the inmate, but also visiting them. Well, I went there to the jail, and I was like, can I get in touch with any family? She's like, well, I'm a heroin addict. I've been in Lawrence for 7 years. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I haven't seen my son in 7 years, and I haven't talked to my mother in 7 years. I met a drug addict in Boston, in Chicago, where she was from, brought her to Boston, and he left her stranded. She made her way to Lawrence. So she gave me her mom's first and last name. So me, no pen and paper, I'm on Google on the way home, and I find her mom on Facebook, Chicago, Illinois. So me, all happy, oh my God, I found her mom on Facebook, send her a message, and she's like, is this some sick joke? Call me. I call her, and she's screaming at me on the phone. Oh my God, we haven't found her on the obituaries. We thought she was dead, but she's not since we can't find her. We don't know where she is. I'm like, no, she's currently incarcerated. She's struggling with addiction. Make a long story short, she was being released from prison in 2 weeks, and she was going to Lawrence District Court for her charge to get out. So I'm like, oh my God, I have class that day. I can't be in court. So that night before, we take a drive to Lawrence, and I'm like, she's going to have no one there in court with us. How can we work our way into her heart, into her mind? So I called Chachi, and I'm like, Chachi, this might sound crazy, but we took construction paper and we took markers, and when you step outside the courthouse, if they release you, we made arrows on every telephone pole of where to go for this spot on Essex Street, where it's basically a recovery center where they can hang out during the day. Because I didn't want her to get out there and meet someone who just wrong place, wrong time, has a substance. She just relapses really quick.
Right.
So she got out of the courthouse, and the first thing is the blue mailbox in front of the courthouse, and it says, Chachi, you have this. Go right. And it's just arrows the whole way down to the recovery center. And make a long story short, we ended up saving money, me and her mother. We put her on a train to Chicago, Illinois, which was 22-hour train ride from South Station in Boston. And I remember the day like it was yesterday. She didn't have anything, so we went to Walmart. We got her a backpack, a teddy bear, and a bunch of candy from 7-Eleven. And she took that 22-hour train ride, and her mom calls me that after the 22 hours, like, somebody wants to speak to you. And Chachi gets on the phone, and it's Chachi like, oh, Michael, I made it. Thank you so much. And this is a woman who now currently has a full-time job and is taking care of her 7-year-old son. But at that time, she was selling her body to support her habit. She was, into heroin, into crack, into dealing. And that's one of the successful stories that we had. Then there's also those painful ones.
What is
too.
that like for you? So a couple questions. There's so much going on in my head. When you're going to the prison, when you're putting up the signs with the construction paper, when you're going to Walmart and 7-Eleven, what is the thought process behind that? Like, what are you feeling? Like, do you ever take on the stress of the other person's life and like what could go wrong? And you're emotionally invested in these people, right? You're emotionally invested in helping them. This is your part of their journey. So that's my first question. And then my second one is, what does it feel like when you get that call that says, hey, I made it home. I'm now with my family for the first time ever. Like, you changed her life. Like, you gave her a new lease on life. And you're a very humble person, which I admire. But, like, what does that feel like for you, knowing that you were a huge catalyst in that, you and the team?
Yeah, that was the best phone call ever. Like, that phone call still rings bells. She's currently still sober. We still talk on the phone to this day. But I'll never forget those nights that she was on the corner, crying.
Yeah.
Like, it just shows you, though, that it's possible. You know, I tell people all the time, like that woman was on the corner. Now she's working a full-time job in Chicago, Illinois. And when it comes to, you know, did I take on the person's stress? Thank God for my mom, because honestly, like I would go to her, like, oh mom, like how do I handle the situation? Now, mind you, at 18, she was like having a heart attack.
Yeah,
and
I'm
I
sure.
was
Yeah, right.
honestly in these locations. Like,
Right.
you have to be careful to do this. Like, you really want to be around here. But she saw like the passion I had for it and how bad I wanted
I
to
saw
do
you
it.
light up just talking about it.
Yeah,
It was
so-
more passion than I've seen. Like obviously you're passionate as a whole, but there's a new level when you talk about that story.
Yeah, my mom was very supportive throughout all the stories I told her, because like it wasn't easy at times, you know. At times it was like, oh man, mom, like I don't know if she's gonna do it. Like I think she might relapse. I don't think she's gonna want to go. And her just being like, well, just be there for her, you know, just be her support system. You know, she'll always remember that at least, you know.
How can we lower the stigma around? Because I think a lot of people see somebody homeless and they think, oh, they must have made bad decisions or they must have done this. You have so much knowledge of how somebody goes from point A to point B. And I'm sure nobody's is the same, right? I'm sure it has to do with so many different things. Can you give us some specifics on some of the individuals you've helped, like how they went from where they were to being homeless on the streets, and how we can lower and get rid of the stigma surrounding the homeless population? Because again, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We've all made mistakes.
Oh yeah.
Right?
for
I
sure.
have made terrible mistakes in my life, and I've never been there. But I feel like for some people, it's not that far out of the realm of possibility for a couple things going wrong, and you end up there. So what are some of the stories from people going from where they were to point B, and then how do we lower that, like the stigma?
Yeah, unfortunately, the stigma is still so huge, you know, with the addiction piece, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a disease, you know, they're doing it by choice. You know, they look at somebody, they already look the other way because they think they can, just go get a job. Unfortunately, we just don't know the reason why they're in that situation. Like I always go back to trauma and how they were raised. Like that 31-year-old that maybe, you know, unfortunately using heroin IV right now, like she might have had a mother that was struggling with heroin and a father that was struggling with heroin in the household. That's all she saw. She then went to DCF custody. She went from place to place. Her mind was never in a stable environment. Like she already had a disadvantage.
Right.
You know, she didn't have that, like, that person that kind of was just there for her. You know, maybe she didn't have a grandmother that could just take her in, and she just fell into the system, unfortunately. You know, it could easily be, you know, you hear some horrific stories. Oh, my mom got me high at 15 with cocaine for the first time. Like, and then there's obviously stories where someone just got curious. I wanted to get high. I wanted to see what this felt like. Like, it's just so many different aspects put together. But, like, we just don't know. But at the end of the day, like, we're all on the swing set as a kid. We're all little babies, you know, at one time. There's no, you know, 5-year-old, I want to become a heroin addict when I get older. You know, it just doesn't work like that. Not one person's mind as a little kid wants to be homeless, you know. And unfortunately, circumstances lead you to that path, and it's an uphill battle to get out of it, you know.
How do we help people acknowledge that it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to do something about it? I think this is one of the greatest misunderstood concepts in the world, not just in personal development, but in general. It is not your fault that you grew up in that environment, but it is your responsibility to try to make a productive life out of that. How have you gotten to people's hearts with that specifically?
Yeah, you can't 100% use that as the excuse, though. You can't be like, well, you know, my parents both struggled with addiction. It's kind of like what it was meant to be for me, because that's just kind of like making an excuse for yourself.
Right.
You
Then
gotta
you
at
can't
least
change it.
Exactly. You gotta
Right.
at least meet us halfway here. You know, you gotta want it. You know, so I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna push you, but I gotta see the effort you're being put involved as well.
Right.
You know, I think the aspect of TMF. Now, TMF, the individuals that are in TMF are mostly at-risk individuals. These are individuals that, when I look at diversity, dropped out of high school, have been involved with gang culture, maybe no support system, no father, suicide ideation. Like, there's just so many factors involved with them. And when you look at the kind of approach, you have these at-risk individuals serving the food to the homeless, and then you have, obviously, the homeless that are just already really low in life at the moment. So you basically put a negative that people look, these TMF members, because most people look at these TMF like, oh, they got issues, they got problems. That's kind of how they're viewed as. Then you got the homeless who are viewed as negative as well. So you're putting a negative and a negative together to create a positive. There's a lot of people that feed the homeless. There's sometimes people that are on the right track in life. They're feeling good. It's a great business, a great program. Like, you really have a negative people that are struggling in life, TMF members, who are trying to learn about this, and I think it's creating a positive approach that we have.
So fire, man.
Right.
It's so fire.
How do you know when somebody is like ready for change? So somebody who comes to you, how do you pick somebody and say, like, I think you should be part of the TMF family? I think you would make a great, like, how does that work? Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you were enjoying this episode where Alan and I were lucky enough to sit down in studio with the one and only Michael Gorman. Friendly reminder, Alan and I will be speaking at Your World Within Live.
Oh, yeah.
Hollywood Beach, Florida at Margaritaville, September 7th. This will change your life. I just want to jump on here and remind you of that because, again, a lot of people go on vacation to get away from their lives. We want you to go on vacation to create a new life.
Absolutely. Well done,
bad,
Kevin.
not bad,
Well
not
done.
bad.
I also want you all, if you are hyperconscious and want to be more hyperconscious, to join the Hyperconscious Nation. If you go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com and click on join #Hyperconscious Nation. I wanted to see how many times I could say hyperconscious
70.
in a 10-second blip. No, seriously though, join that community. It is growing and it's going to help you grow as well.
I just opened a fortune cookie and it said you guys should get back into the episode. Do you think we should?
You lied. Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
Bye.
So I get the question a lot, whether it's through social media, like, oh, I want to join TMF, how do I join? And I'll say, come check out a meeting. But it's basically the consistency, the hunger, the drive. Like, if I see you coming weekly and that you want it, like, then you're becoming a TMF member. If I see you just once and you're observing, you never come back, like, I can't just say, oh, you're a TMF now because you show up to the first meeting. Like, it's kind of got to work your way into it. And my biggest thing in life is being comfortable. Even when it came to school at a young age, you get called in the class and you didn't even raise your hand. Next thing you know, my face is turning bright red. I don't want to speak. For some reason, I wasn't paying attention during that moment. You're uncomfortable.
Yeah,
right.
Now everyone's staring at you. Oh my God, his face turned so red. Why your face turning so red, Michael? And I'm just like, oh my God, everyone just shut up, please.
Right.
And it's just like situations like that. So when you come to your first TMF member, my thing is we have to make that person feel comfortable. Because as you guys know, when you go to a new event that you guys travel a lot, you go to a new event, you don't really know anybody.
Right.
And obviously you guys have better social skills at times, so you know how to communicate, put yourself out there.
Yeah.
But as a TMF member, 16, 17-year-old kid coming to TMF for the first time,
Yeah.
it can be scary. I don't know anybody here. Like, where do I sit? How do I interact? So we make that person feel comfortable. Go grab that kid, make him sit next to you, learn about him a little bit, and then we work with that person. We want to make that into a family.
I think that's the thing about you, man. Like, you're very, and I don't know if this is subconscious, and Alan can talk on this too. He's fixing the camera, but you've opened up to us in your seat since we started this. I feel like, and Alan, I want to get your take when you come back, but I feel like you're very communication and connection driven. Like, do you
100%.
really value connection with people?
I do.
Yeah.
Connection is huge to me.
Does it ever scare you? Because have you ever heard somebody say, I just care too much? Do you feel like that's ever a bad thing for you? Like, I'm sure you've gone through pain because of it. You've experienced pain because of it. Have you ever thought to yourself, like, I wish I didn't care so much?
It's funny, when I was going through some painful experiences at one point in my life, around like 19, 20, losing some people to the streets that I grew a close relationship with, I was caring so much where I was letting it alter my life a little bit, where I was like really like tearing up, like, oh my God, that hurt me so much. And my mom telling me, like, you can't give it your all. Like, you gotta kind of put your heart a little bit with a lock too at the same time.
Sustainability.
Yeah, basically, and it's true. You can't lose yourself, especially in like the social work field. Burnout is huge.
Yeah.
You gotta take care of yourself at the same time.
Right.
So and especially with balance. At one point in my life, I didn't have the best balance. Whether it was 100% into basketball, losing focus with school,
Right.
100% into the streets, losing focus with this. Girlfriend, say a relationship, and
Right.
100% into girlfriend.
Right.
I'm now losing focus the other things that are important. I'm passionate about. Balance is huge, and like, I got to make sure, I'm caring for these individuals, whether it's TMF or the addicts, but I'm also, taking time to like take care of myself.
What's the oxygen mask?
Yeah.
Right.
We were at an event and shout out to Rob. Rob Rains. So somebody asked us a question. We were doing a Q&A, and we answered this young lady, and then Rob said, do you mind if I add something? And he said, you have to understand, and this is something that we talked about a lot, but when your plane loses pressure in the cabin, the oxygen masks fall from above you, and they say if you're a parent of a child, you have to put your mask on first because you can't save somebody else if you can't breathe. And I think that so many people are in that space, especially people who like, when I get a DM, I have like 8 or 9 DMs right now, of people.
It's a tough life.
It is.
Do you know that I gave a speech in front of 40 people?
But I at one point I wanted this so badly. Like I wanted people to reach out to me. So I always go back on, don't forget how bad you wanted it before you had it. But it is that balance, man. It's such an important thing. You've learned so much about others. Mm-hmm. You've learned so much about circumstance and what it's like, perspective. Like, you've learned so much about people in general. Mm-hmm. What have you learned about yourself from this experience? Like, what has it taught you fundamentally about you that maybe you didn't know before?
I know we were talking previously before we started this podcast, and you mentioned confidence about yourself, for example. Same with myself. Confidence at one point in my life. And, like, I was a pretty talented basketball player, in a humble way saying that, but at times I didn't even believe it when I was younger. Like, I was a freshman playing varsity basketball, starting point guard. But at times I'm going home to my mom like, man, like, I don't know about this. Have confidence in yourself, Michael. You're doing great. Like, when it came to being successful into TMF, at times I'm sometimes overthinking, well, like, is this good enough? Is this good enough? Like, I'm asking individuals, is it good enough? Instead of being like, you know what, like, patting myself on the back. You're doing a good job. Like, you're actually trying to make a difference here. And it's the confidence piece I learned about myself. It was also telling myself that, like, the sky's the limit. Like, just go get it. And just never really stop. Like, there was times where, I see individuals, and it's sad, people I went to high school with, and even my basketball team, that, they're still in the same spot in life, and I want to keep, moving my way up. Like, I have a bachelor's in social work, but unfortunately, we all know bachelor's in social work not making, the best money, so I got to go get it and get a master's now. I got to keep, wanting it in life. So I learned that as well.
Can we talk a little bit about ambition? And similar to filling your own cup and then using that to serve others, I think there's personal development, and then I think there's service. And I think that the more we serve others, it's going to touch us and make us want to develop ourselves more. And the more we develop ourselves, the more we have to give and serve.
I agree.
Can you talk a little bit about what you've done in your own life to make sure your cup stays full? And then some of the ambition that you have in your heart, because if you weren't ambitious, I always say, like, you'll only grow to the level of your ambition. And if you're not growing, you're not going to have more to serve the world with. So you just mentioned, like, believing in yourself, having self-confidence. I am doing a good job. If you're not doing that, how can you tell these other people they should believe in themselves? So how do you cultivate that confidence every day and really develop yourself?
Yeah, of course. I guess everyone knows you really can't help someone else until you can help yourself first. Remember the day before I was going into my first year of college, the night before move-in day, I had tears in my eyes, and I was at my house tearing up to my mom. And I'm like, I don't want to go. At that point, TMF was a summer program, so it was May, and it ended at the end of August. We had a banquet, and the day before move-in day, I'm like, I don't want to go. Like, I feel like they need me. Like, what are they gonna do without the whole year when I'm at school? Like, they're gonna go back to being in the streets, selling drugs, and it killed me. Like, I was really hurt. Like, I built a family, and now I feel like I was leaving the family, and I was leaving them out to dry. And I get the glory and they get to suffer. And she was like, but Michael, for it to be successful in life and for it to grow, you have to go get it yourself. Like, you have to go get that education. You can come back and accomplish what you want. And I'm here now, back at home, and I feel like those words, the night before moving day, I'll never forget it. I was hurt, And here I am, and I feel like the program's coming along. And even when I was at school, it might sound crazy, even on my phone to this day, I still have all the numbers. I would have the first name, and in parentheses, I would have street. And at one point after my basketball games, the homeless were actually calling from the payphone to ask if I won my basketball game in college. And that meant the world to me. And I had a little mailbox at Anna Maria, and I would go there after every 2 days in the afternoon after my late class, like 4:45, I go see if I had mail from the people that were incarcerated. I had 275 letters from people who were incarcerated from Lawrence that were homeless, and it's no joke. My mom still has the market basket bag in the basement stored away, but I was just so into it, and I was doing it when I was at school. But I had to continue building myself instead of just staying where I was neutral, because it wouldn't be where it's at right now if I just stayed.
Right. What? Okay, this might be an interesting question, but in my head, like, what makes a place prominent for homeless? Like, so I know Lawrence and then like Haverhill. When we were there, I think I remember you saying like people flock to those areas. How does that happen? Like, why do they go there, and why does it become such a problem in certain places? Is it because they don't have like the shelters and the things to help? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, I think cities throughout the US, I think every city has their own issues. Like, I don't want to just make one specific city look bad. But Lawrence, as we know, like, Lawrence is poverty stricken. You know, that's number one. Number two, unfortunately, is just a source for opiates.
Right.
You know, it's a source for people from Maine, you know, places in New Hampshire coming down to Lawrence to get these opiates and then supply it to where they're from. Unfortunately, it's just, you know, the drug trade and you know, not to categorize like any specific group or anything like that, but it's just very easily accessible. So when we're having those Wednesday night dinners, at some points, there's a lot of people from Lawrence that are, you know, addicted to drugs, but a lot of people from, like, say, Pelham, New Hampshire, you know, far places, you know, Concord, and you got places in, you know, Portland, Maine, and it's just all together. And unfortunately, you know, we do have the shelters, but you look at the shelters in Lawrence, and they have the Daybreak shelter, but they only have a certain limit of beds. Lazarus House doesn't usually take individuals, so it still lacks the services at some points.
Have you ever struggled personally with addiction? Because anyone who has, I had a drinking problem for a time that I think a lot of other people didn't recognize. Oh, you just like to party, but I knew. Like, I knew I had a problem. I remember going to my mom once being like, I think I figured this thing out, just 2 beers a day. She's like, I don't think that's the answer, man. I know what it's like to go down a path that you know is leading you somewhere not great, and to have not a lot of confidence that you can turn it around. I have since really gotten control of that vice, and I've tried to really develop virtues and really be a virtuous man. Have you ever struggled with addiction, and what was that like, if so?
So it's a question that I'm asked pretty frequently, working in the addiction field. Like, hey, you used to use, like, what's your story? Honestly, I've never struggled with addiction. I've never used any substance in my body. And like, I go back to it, it was the curiosity of wanting to know, and I fell in love with it. And I think people are sometimes shocked when they hear that. It's like, wow, like, so you never struggled with addiction, but you're this passionate for this line of work.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And I think that sometimes, because you look at sometimes the substance abuse counselors, you know, they may have struggled with addiction.
Right.
You know, they're 8 years sober, they're giving back because they know how it feels. I don't know how that feels. I don't know how it is to be under the influence of heroin, where you're nodding out and you feel like life's at the end.
But you do know how it feels to feel powerless.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is what it comes down to, being the person you needed when you didn't have any confidence, because that's what addiction feels like. I'm a very confident individual. I truly believe right now that I can accomplish anything I set my mind to. Anything. When it comes to booze and alcohol, that is my most challenging arena, where I actually know what it feels like to not believe in myself. First of all, not believing in yourself sucks. It's the worst. And so I think that if you've ever been there, whether it was through addiction or not, I think that that's like a deep, probably driver of why you do what you do. And I just think it's huge what you're doing, man. Seriously.
Thank you, man.
It is, man. So another thing, you told a bunch of stories. I'd like to talk about the Christmas one, like you doing the Christmas stuff as well. But you took a whiteboard out and you were doing goal setting and helping people set goals. And that's something Alan and I always talk about.
Literally
Like,
lit up like a Christmas tree as soon as you said
I
that.
know. Our
About to get out
whiteboard
my
is usually
whiteboard.
in the studio, but it's outside right now. But how important is goal setting in life for anybody who's listening to this? Somebody who might be a college student, somebody who might be trying to start their own business, any of that. And also, what do you think, like, what did you notice that did for people out living on the streets, like creating some form of a brighter future to follow on?
Yeah, goal setting is huge. I like to visually have them look at their goals too, so they can kind of see it on a whiteboard or a piece of paper instead of just kind of thinking in your head and forgetting it the next day, and just kind of keeping it with you. So I did the goal setting at the TMF meeting on Mondays. We had a topic, one night goal setting. We actually, you know, had individuals talk about what they want to accomplish. But then at those Wednesday night dinners, like, we were trying to think outside the box, and we really had a whiteboard where we're kind of like talking to these individuals about goal setting. And I just don't think they've done it in so long, you know, where they actually thought of what they want to accomplish. It's kind of like they're just going day by day, doing the same thing. They kind of think about wanting to change, then they're like, nah, like, I can't. And it's just kind of opening their mind again, you know. So.
So, not to make this about me again.
Here we go.
Again.
It's about to be.
I feel compelled to say this because one of the ways I overcame my addiction to alcohol was wanting to become a natural fitness athlete. I decided I'm going to be the greatest natural aesthetic men's physique fitness model on the planet. I write that every single day. Now, all of a sudden, booze doesn't align with that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't drink alcohol and accomplish that dream.
Mm-hmm.
So I think someone's genuine desire of something in the future that holds them accountable today is absolutely critical. How can we convince people of that? That we make our goals, but our goals make us. Dude, you are a product, a byproduct
Oh, yeah.
of the goal you've set for this podcast.
I said that at the speech.
Right.
The person you're looking at today would not. My why power is just so incredible. I have to do this because I've really looked into the future and played out like, what could this become? Like I get messages all the time and I love it. Like just like you, man, I light up. So yeah,
you have so much to lose.
I
if you
can't
were to do
stop.
heroin, or
I cannot get off this path because everything will fall.
Right. How do we convince people that it's not just about setting the goal and getting the goal? It's what the goal will make of you.
Oh, of course.
To
I
achieve
think
it.
It's seeing that vision too. It's kind of like believing it.
Right.
Like you tell yourself every day, like I am going to be this.
Right.
And yes, like it's crazy what your mind is so powerful. It really
Yeah.
is. And if you kind of think in a negative way, I feel like negative results happening. But if you like believing what you're like picturing in your head and telling yourself it's gonna be possible, you'd be surprised how much you can accomplish. Because
Right.
there's been stuff with TMF, and like it sounds crazy, but I want to try it and I want to accomplish it, and now we're doing it.
Right.
And I think that's what kind of turns to like, oh wow, this is different. Because whenever I'm thinking with TMF, to be honest, those ideas, the Christmas on the streets, the writing of the jail letters, visiting in prisons, the gift cards, walking to McDonald's to talk to them, like these were all things I was picturing in my head. Like I wanted
Right.
to do this already. Like I
Right.
didn't just say, okay, like, well, here's this in my pocket. Maybe we can just take a walk. No, I already knew like I kind of want to try this out.
Right.
And then you were doing it. And I think TMF is a unique program, in a humble way is saying that is because people are turning their heads like, wow, that's different.
Right.
So at the TMF family dinner on Wednesdays, we have the huge dinner table that we eat together at. But before we eat, we get into a huge circle of about 70 people holding hands. And so we'll have a TMF member holding a hand with a homeless person, volunteers all around the circle. And I'll get in the middle, and basically I'll say, everyone, fist in the air. So now we're all putting our fist in the air, and I say, repeat after me, believe. And they all repeat, believe. Never give up. Never give up. Hope. Hope. Lastly, family. Family. And then we close the circle. And now they're thinking like, wow, like I didn't just come to a dinner.
Right.
I came to somewhere where I'm actually feeling like I belong. And then there's that hope. And hope leads to chance. A chance leads to a possibility of maybe getting out of that situation. So I think like your mind is powerful.
It is everything.
It's everything.
It really
You
is.
could be, dude. I had a moment.
That's what this podcast is about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Change the way you think, change the way you act.
The only
change the way you
reason it's
live.
a thing. I'm laying in bed one night thinking like you can have all the money in the world. It doesn't matter what bed you're sleeping in. It doesn't matter who's sleeping next to you, what state you're in, what country you're in, the size of your house. If you don't fix this thing up here, if you don't fix your brain, your thoughts, your belief, your confidence, you're screwed. You're screwed. Everything starts with this. And the fact that when you were saying that, it really makes sense that it's the movement family because you're creating a movement, you're creating a family, and it's incredible. So I wanted to ask about, hold on. Let me check this here. Oh, have you had any, I think everybody hits like a roadblock where they're like, oh shit, I don't know if this is actually going to work. How many of those like really, really gut check moments have you had where you're thinking to yourself, I don't know if I can keep doing this? Have you had any of those like, oh shit, I can't quit here, like really, really dark nights?
There was also this time I was struggling with confidence, I feel like, too, and I was kind of asking, like, is it going okay? Like, do you think these meetings are working? Do you feel like the Wednesdays are being accomplished? That sometimes led to a roadblock. I wouldn't say a huge roadblock, because obviously it still moved forward
Right.
throughout the years, but it's kind of where I question myself.
Okay.
And at times, if you're struggling with, confidence and you're questioning yourself, it kind of lead you to a scary moment where you're kind of like, well, should I continue this? Like, is it actually working? Right. And then, thank God, I have people in my life that I, can talk to. because I think that's huge. Being able to talk to someone, whether it's a therapist, a parent, a mentor, someone who's been there for you in life, where you can kind of go to that person. They're not on the in, they're on the outside looking in.
Yep.
They care about you, and they're kind of giving you that life advice. Like, hey, so-and-so, like, I'm struggling with this situation. What do you think? Mike, calm down, breathe. Like, just breathe for a second. Like, look what you've accomplished already. It's not like you just, right now, just building something. Like, it's built. Like, now just work on this. And I think hearing those voices, I love listening to older people speak. I do.
Right.
They've already been through so much in life.
Right.
Whether it's my high school basketball coach, that's now the principal I'm doing high school. Like, I love picking his brain. Whether it's someone who's a 65-year-old man who maybe now at a nursing home, but he's lived it all. Like, he's seen the good. He's seen the bad. He's dealt with loss. He's dealt with death. He knows how to, get over that, live with it.
Yeah.
He's dealt with maybe a child getting older who no longer has time for him anymore. Unfortunately, it's sad to say, where he doesn't check in with his dad anymore. And, like, his heart's already taken so much, and I like picking the older people's brains. So
That's absolute fire.
Right?
So mentors, you mentioned.
Mentors,
There's a
yeah.
couple things that I want to make sure. So first and foremost, we talked about the confidence conundrum prior to this episode, and I said to you that I want to inject belief so that people believe in their own brighter future, so that they'll take action, get better results, and then prove to themselves that they're capable. And then that will snowball. So, Kev, can you explain to our listeners, since you're now a world-renowned speaker,
Oh, sure.
what the confidence conundrum is, both cycles, and then can Mike please tell us, you mind if I call you Mike?
that's all.
Okay. Tell us how that plays a role in helping people, because I have a quote here that you said at your speech. People may forget what you said, but they'll never forget how much you cared. So you have to get to the heart to get them to believe in themselves and go.
Yeah, what a preface, man. All right, so if you're listening, visualize this. So just visualize 4 boxes. It's the easiest way to envision it. So on the top, you have uncertainty of results. No matter what you're entering, no matter, it's a conversation, maybe it's a game, maybe it's anything, maybe it's you chasing your dreams, you're going to have an uncertainty of the results. Now, in the confidence conundrum, the next thing is lack of action. When you don't take action, you don't get results. When you don't get results, you don't get feedback, right? So you do not know what to tweak. You do not know if what I'm doing is working. So the next thing is that's going to prove to you, those lack of results will then prove to you that, well, I was right to not do this because I'm not confident enough to do it. And that cycle just continues. Now, if you can inject belief in between uncertainty and the lack of action, then you take action. When you take action, you will get results. They might not be great. They might not be the results you wanted. Maybe it's a fail-forward moment, but you still have results. And now you have proof that me taking action did not result in me failing catastrophically. I'm not dead. My fears didn't kill me. And then that's how you build belief. Like, that's a belief-building system as opposed to the confidence conundrum.
So how do we inject belief? How have you found, basically, people may forget what you said, but they'll never forget how much you cared? That story you told earlier, she at the jail was like, why are you here? She's never been believed in, clearly. And you believed in her. It turned her whole life around because of, I believe, that cycle. How do we do that more? And how do we convince our listeners to do that with people in their lives?
Yeah, with that quote, going back on that was actually my mom. She actually found that in the paper one day. And she's like, people may forget what you said and forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. She said, and she put it in the fridge, and I used to always see it, so it kind of built it inside of me. I think people in life, though, sometimes need that push. I think sometimes a little bit of a push. I think we all need it at times.
Yeah.
Where, might be doing great, but in this certain area, I think I need a little bit of a push here. And, you have someone who pushes you who may not even really know you. It's kind of interesting. I always look at, like, approaches in life. Like, when I talked about that motivational interviewing approach, I think meeting someone where they're at is huge instead of looking down on them.
Right.
When it comes to, like, that woman Chachi, I just think the approach of the push, like, when you look at her, like, she had 3 people in front of her that were 18 years old. She's 31, and she didn't even know it was 2 weeks ago. And we're believing in her. When it comes to even me or you guys, all of a sudden you have 2 little fans here. It could be 2 10-year-olds, a boy and a girl, and it's like, oh my God, like, I love your show. Or I just love the way you do this. And it's like, wow. Like, I have someone who I don't even know who's believing in me. When I was playing college basketball, I played Division III. I'm not playing Division I. I'm not on ESPN, I'm in small gyms. It was a blessing to play college basketball. But I remember there was this little boy, and there was also a little girl that like made a poster for me, and they used to love coming to the games, and it was they just ended up really liking me, and talking to them after the game was special, and it's like wow, like it pushes you to do things in life. Sometimes it's the push, sometimes it's the support from someone you don't even know. It's interesting how things can go with that.
So Alan and I, we're wrapping up here. Honestly, I feel like we could keep you here all day. We'll have to do a round 2 again because it's just an interesting conversation because you don't just do, you live it. And a lot of people do. We talked about that in the preamble. Like a lot of people just do things. They don't actually live it. And you're living it. You're a living, breathing, walking example of what you say. So Alan and I always ask every guest, we each have our own little question. My question for you is, what do you hope to accomplish before you die? What is your end goal with your life?
I want to make TMF. Well, with the goal with TMF, I want to make it into basically. I want to take one of the abandoned mills in Lawrence, and I wanted to make it into a TMF building. I love the old look, the whole like the abandoned look. I like it starting from nothing, like in an old mill with TMF, and I want to see it continue when I'm no longer here. Like I might have started, but I would love that to continue. And I just think when it comes to myself, I just want to know that I made maybe a difference in some individuals' lives. Kind of a scary thing, like chills this week. I had a social worker text me a picture that was crumpled up. And she's like, I went to my client's house and I found this picture on the bureau. And it was you and a homeless woman on the steps in the streets, a woman named Kuba. And she said, to her client, where did you get this photo? Like, where did you get this? And she's like, oh, that's my mommy and some white guy that tried to save her. She printed this out and I kept it.
My goodness.
And what do you know? She joined TMF this Monday, and now I'm looking at the eyes of that homeless woman's daughter who's now into the TMF program. In my eyes, like I'm not huge with religion. I hope one day I can build a relationship, say with like God and everything. But I feel like that's just a sign in life, like wow. Because I feel like I'm looking at that girl, I'm looking at Kuba, the girl I once helped. And I feel like when I pass away, hopefully I can just know that I've touched some people in a way that they may never have felt before at their heart, so that's kind of how I want to look at it.
Powerful, man. Tearing up.
Amen. So you mentioned giving people a push.
Mm-hmm.
I see you as an unbelievably strong leader, a conscious leader. I'm reading a book right now called The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership,
Nice.
and you are clearly a conscious leader. You're leading by example. You're helping people become leaders themselves and empowering others to empower others. So I believe you mentioned starting a nonprofit or making it into a nonprofit.
Yep.
And not only do I want to connect you with someone who I believe will help you tremendously, but I believe that the bottleneck to any business is the skills and or the psychology of the leader. So if you ever need any help in the personal development arena, and I do want to challenge you and push you to up your ambition because I think the world needs more of you, brother.
No, I appreciate that, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for my question.
Yes, we got there.
So normally I have a North Star necklace around my neck.
Okay.
That someone very dear to me gave me. I just ordered it. I was actually in the lake this weekend and it fell off into the abyss. Yeah, so I ordered a new one. But to me, that represents being the brightest star in the sky for when people are in pain. I have this quote that I said at my speech. We cannot see the stars during the day. Sometimes it takes the darkness to see clearly that which we simply couldn't within the night. And that's when people reach out. I want to be a star that's so bright that it can be seen from the darkest places, and I think that's what you are as well. So I admire you so much. If there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. But my question is this. I think we grow and evolve, we change, but I think something about us never changes. What about you, Michael, never changed?
I think it's a piece of my heart that never forgets about, those days as a young 18-year-old kid. Like I want to write myself a letter one day, like just a letter to my younger self. Because when you're 18, you don't know much, And, I just think writing myself a letter of what I know now, maybe some of the things I would have went through, I don't know. I just feel like it's a piece of my heart that won't ever change. And that's that young 18-year-old kid that started this all out. Because I'm 26 right now, I'm years into it. But I always look back at that young Michael that when I didn't know anything and I was just out there trying to learn just by doing, and it's true. And that's how I look at it. So.
Hell yeah. All right. So you survived the hyperconscious gauntlet.
Oh, yeah.
Where can Usually I say, like, where can people find you? But where can people find you? But also, how can they help to help others? Like, what can they do to help you keep growing TMF and, whether it's donations or donating time? Like, how can people help you?
Yeah, so if you personally want to be a TMF member looking for a second family in life, you can reach out to me. You can look me up, Michael Gorman TMF on Facebook, Instagram, and you can come to that Monday meeting. It's actually in North Andover, 33 Johnson Street, 6 to 8 p.m., and we can take you in. Your family member wants to come in, or if you're just looking for maybe like not trying to be a part of the family, but just looking for some volunteer work, just trying to be part of like maybe like the Wednesday nights, the Christmas on the streets, you can just show up, and we have a big whiteboard, and it'll say all the tables and all the jobs, and you can just put your name next to something that's available, so you can feel like you're being part and you're doing something. Because sometimes people come on a Wednesday and like, oh, they're standing around, well, how do I help? What can I do to help? Just go straight to the sign-in table with a whiteboard, and you can see what's available, and you can put your name down. So we have both aspects too, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely, man. I genuinely appreciate you so very much. I
thank you.
Even when you're talking, man, it's like your level of ambition to spread love and joy and connection and belief in others is unbelievably high, and I'm genuinely blown away being able to sit here and talk to you, because it's just very rare. That level of care for other people is just so very rare, and I feel blessed to be able to share the microphone with you and introduce our audience to you, because
thank you.
Yeah, we were so happy to see you, man.
Thank you.
I second everything you just said. I don't want to assume that this is something that you want, but I want to offer it. If you ever need help with one of those workshops or goal-setting exercises or anything like that, and you want a couple speakers, I know that Kevin seconds this. I'd be happy to volunteer.
Definitely, 100%.
Volunteer, absolutely.
Right on. You got anything? So give, say I just came up to you. I said, hey, I need a quick 10 seconds of motivation. Anything you want to leave the listeners with, a quick 10 seconds of motivation?
Yeah, motivation, just I think it starts with yourself within. Just believe in yourself and know what you want to do. Just set yourself some goals and just move one step in front of the other. Start. Don't just put it off to tomorrow, because then it'll just be months and months down the line.
Yeah.
You still got the goals on the board. So I think just start somewhere.
So you're either going to look back in a year and say, I'm so glad I started a year ago, or I should have started a year ago.
Exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Michael Gorman of the Movement family. We hope you enjoyed, and we will talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this episode where Alan and I were lucky enough to sit down in person with the amazing Michael Gorman. Up next, we have a 5-minute clinic on the word confidence. So when I spoke recently, last Thursday, when you're listening to this, it will be 2 weeks ago, I spoke on cultivating confidence. So we sat down and did an episode on this. Confidence is something I lacked for a long time, and I would not be doing the things that I am if I was not able to cultivate that. So my goal is to help you gain it.
So the reason he says cultivating is it's something you have to do every day. This episode is going to give you 5 specific steps that Kevin actually mentioned in his exact speech on ways to cultivate confidence every single day. Imagine living in a world where you were completely and utterly confident in your ability to figure anything out that you wanted to. You would never hold back from trying, and then every one of those reps would give you more learning as well.
We hope you will enjoy that, and we will talk to you on Monday.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for listening to another episode of the Hyper Conscious Podcast.
Going hyper-conscious will absolutely change your life, because if you understand why something is the way it is, now you have the power to change it. If you going hyper-conscious with us has changed your life in any way, please share this episode with one of your friends, because the more people that go hyper-conscious, the better this world's going to be for everybody.
And if you would kindly leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, that would help us make more people hyper-conscious, and we would be greatly appreciative.
Thank you.
Bye.